it is important that you see democracy in the context of national constitutional systems. It is not, the African Union does not dictate to its member states. The African Union is made up of member states, and member states have their various constitutional rule of law systems that we follow, or we guide them in their deliberations.
The African Union does not dictate to its member states. The African Union is made up of member states. That is the African Union ambassador speaking in Accra, Ghana. He was the same man who was talking about how the African Union cannot deal with the Sahel countries because they are not democratic, and the African Union is a champion of democracy all over the world and stuff like that. I don't even know if they really understand what democracy is all about. But here he was talking about democracy, mentioning democracy. And a journalist in Ghana asked him such an intelligent question that really exposed the hypocrisy of the African Union and also some of our leaders. I want us to go and watch the full video. It's a very long video. You need to have time to watch it fully, and you will see how hypocritical our institutions in Africa is, how hypocritical our leaders are, because they will talk something just because they want to speak to please their Western colonial criminals. And that is exactly what this man is saying here. I want you to watch the full video. I'm not going to talk much. Let us come back and analyze it. But before we do that, please, as you already know, I keep calling on you. Please don't just watch and not share. Please, as you are watching it, please try and share, and also pass comments. Your comments are really helping us. Those of you doing that, we really appreciate your comments. We are learning a lot from that. Those of you who haven't really subscribed to our YouTube channel, and also follow us on Facebook, One African Mission. On TikTok, One African Mission, the number One African Mission. We are on a mission until we get rid of all the hypocrites and Satan out of Africa. Let us watch the full video. Come back and analyze it.
Of course, also have democracy. I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Okay, we'll take one more question and then we will bring this briefing to a close. I think Atamensa was in line for a question.
Yeah, thank you. Atamensa from Ghana.
Please, one question.
I have two, please.
No, one, please.
Oh. So
all right,
my
two quick ones.
Two quick ones, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as Ambassador Bankole rightly said, there was upsurge of terrorism, extremism, war in parts of Africa. What measures are you undertaking to prevent access to ammunition and guns? These armed people have access to ammunition, and there are international organizations that sell arms to these groups. As African Union, what effort are you putting in place to stop these groups to get access to this ammunition so that would help stop war in Africa? Then my second question regards, said African Union's goal is to entrench democracy in Africa, and you don't support unconstitutional change of government. But there is a situation in Cote d'Ivoire, for example, that after the government exceeded its tenure, it manipulated the system to continue to be in government. Don't you think such things help to infuriate people, mobilize people to come against the government? Because you have completed your tenure goal so that people will elect somebody to come, but you have manipulated the system and they are in government. And so if you want to help stabilize democracy, what effort are you putting in place to stop these practices? Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner. Please just summarize your first question without the explanation. Just put the question forward.
Yes, I said the ambassador talked about upsurge of terrorism, extremism, war in Africa, and I want to find out what effort the African Union is putting in place to stop access to ammunition by these groups, these armed groups. As African Union, how can you do to stop this thing?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much. The first is that the African Union has set up what is called the African Union Counter-Terrorism Center in Algiers. It looks at the whole gamut of capacity support. Remember, the African Union does not have its own army. The African Standby Force is still being operationalized or towards operationalization. So there is no army to stop to check the borders. Rather, we are coordinating the various initiatives that relate to intelligence sharing, that relate to maritime security, because some of the armed groups and terrorist groups use the high seas. So we are planning a continental naval exercise where we bring all our naval chiefs together to be able to better manage their maritime borders. We are also investing in small arms and light weapons better control. The proliferation of weapons of mass destruction with the armed groups is another factor. In the Sahel region, where, as you know, after the fall of former Gaddafi in Libya, everything exploded in the Sahel. So the Sahel has become a haven for small arms, transnational organized crimes. So we are making sure that we help build the capacities. We have entered into institutional arrangements, support with the Nigerian Counterterrorism Center, with the Accra Initiative, like I said, with also newly the Counterterrorism Academy in Côte d'Ivoire, in Jacquesville. So these centers, we are supporting their institutional efforts to better strengthen the training, the awareness in their national defense systems, because that is what we need to do. Use better satellite, use better intelligence, human intelligence in particular, to be able to really stop the access of the terrorist groups to weapons that they use devastatingly. But here is the caveat. On the internet, you can even learn how to produce IEDs. This is where we have to really manage the future. It is important that you see democracy in the context of national constitutional systems. It is not, the African Union does not dictate to its member states. The African Union is made up of member states, and member states have their various constitutional rule of law systems that we follow, or we guide them in their deliberations. But let me assure you that our goal is to remain.
Yeah, so as you can see, he started talking about democracy, how they are willing to fight terrorism and all that. He spoke a lot. And as I said, we cannot even go, it will be boring for if we want to like react to the entire response that he was giving to the journalists. But what really moved me is when the journalist asked him, okay, you guys are you claim to be champions of democracy. You claim you cannot deal with the Sahel countries because they overthrow military, they overthrow democratic leaders. First of all, if you talk about some of those countries, they were not even democratic. As example, like Burkina Faso, the man who was there was a military guy who has been in power for how long we don't even know. So if a military guy topple another military guy, what is it that you claim that you cannot deal with him? You cannot only deal with them because they are standing up for them for Africa. That is the only reason. It got nothing to do with them not being democratic. Because if you were to be champions of democracy, the journalist asks you, what about Côte d'Ivoire? What about Togo? There are many countries in Africa, and we here in One African Mission, we don't even care about democracy. As long as you can put food on our table, as long as you can give us dignified life, that is what we want. The Chinese doesn't practice democracy, and yet they are living a bit like they are progressing. The Saudis, they don't practice democracy, yet they are progressing. So it is not only just about democracy; it is about putting up measures to uplift your people from poverty. That is all that we want. If democracy can uplift Africa from poverty, we want it. And if and what we can see for the past 50 years, democracy has, or 60 years since independence, democracy has not given us what you people have been talking about. It's all about talking good English. This time it is not going to be just about speaking good English. It is not about grammar. The guy asks you, what about Côte d'Ivoire? the president tenure of office. He stayed in office for 2 terms. The constitution said stay in office for 2 terms. He changed the constitution and he's remained in office because the French wants him to be there. Because France wants him to be there. And yet the African Union doesn't have problem with that. We also what happened in Togo. The African Union and not that we have problem with what happened in Togo. For me, I don't care about no democracy. As long as the person is there and the person care about the citizens, then we are fine. But in the case of Cote d'Ivoire and in the case of Africa, most of the people who are staying in power, they are staying in power purposely because their colonial criminals, whom they call their colonial masters, want them to stay because they are doing the bidding of the colonial criminals. So the colonial criminals will always want you to stay until they can get somebody who can continue from your legacy of selling your people to them. So the guy asks you, what about Cote d'Ivoire? Don't you think that situation of that nature can lead to a coup d'etat? And then what did he say? He said the African Union does not interfere in people in independent in countries. The African Union does not dictate to countries. So if the African Union does not dictate to countries, why is the African Union dictating to those Sahel countries? The African Union does not dictate to its member states. The African Union is made up of member states. Those Sahel countries they are part of the African Union member states. And they are in their respective countries. We all saw what was happening. So they came to take their people out of that bondage, that colonial bondage. And you have problem with that because the colonial criminals want you to have problem with that. But you don't have problem with people who are overstaying in office and you call yourself champions of democracy. As Malcolm X said, democracy to us is nothing but hypocrisy. As long as democracy cannot put food on our table, as long as under democracy our people the youth are continuing to run away from Africa, as long as under this so-called democracy the children of Africa are continuing to be dying in the Mediterranean Sea, as long as under this democracy the children of Africa does not have dignity, then we do not need that democracy. That democracy is nothing but hypocrisy to us. It is not just about democracy. If democracy can provide us the dignity that we want as children of Africa, then we want it. But if that democracy cannot give us that, we don't need it. Look at Niger. Today as we speak, Turkey and Russia are in a competition as to who Niger will give their uranium to. Today, Niger is independent. That tells you when you have good leadership, you will have independence, and then you will decide the destiny of your future for yourselves. The destiny of Niger, the destiny of Mali, the destiny of Burkina Faso is now in the hands of their leadership. But the destiny of these so-called democratic countries is in the hands of the colonial criminals. That is what we don't want as this generation of Africans. That is what we are against. We are not against the African Union. We are not against Ecowas, but we are against people, puppet leaders who continue to put the destiny of our continent in the hands of people who never love us and who will never care about us. And yet here I'm talking about the colonial criminals. That is what we are against. So, Mr. Ambassador, this time around, it is not about good English, good diction, speaking good English and all that. That is not what we want. We don't eat good English. Good English never provide us or give us anything that we deserve. It is our rules, it is our leadership, good leadership that we want, not good English. We want good leadership, not good English. I thank you very much for coming around. Please, if you haven't joined our mission, One Africa mission, please support our mission. We are on a mission to see a united, dignified Africa. We are on a mission to kick Satan out of Africa. If you really want Satan, the colonial criminals to be out of Africa, please then join our mission. Support us. Support us by sharing and commenting. We will really want to learn from your experience, what you think, what should we do to see a united, better Africa, not just for us, but for the next generation of Africans. And as you are watching, please also try to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't just watch. Follow us on Facebook. Don't just watch. Follow us on TikTok. Don't just watch. As you watch, it doesn't take nothing to follow us or to subscribe. I thank you very much for coming around. Until we meet again. May the gods of Africa bless us all.